Welcome to episode 281 of the Working Fans Podcast, where, Dave, we have a lot on our plate today. But if there's a lot on our plate, you know there's a lot in our cup. And what's in that cup? That's Game Up Hard Hydration. It's like your favorite sports drink and your favorite seltzer merged together, became a much better product. Dave, give them the rundown.
Oh, man, there are four great flavors. Fruit punch, orange, lemon lime, and grape. And guys, most importantly, it's only 110 calories. You don't have to feel guilty. You can enjoy some Game Up just like you can enjoy us.
And I don't know if I don't know how this was enjoyed, but GCW, the People versus GCW, 1 week ago, we were talking about this because we were excited about it.
Yeah.
How much of the show did you watch, Dave? And what did you think overall?
I watched highlights. The show really dragged me. There was like a 2-hour pre-show, and the way it loaded on, I saw there was like 5-hour show, and I was like, oh man, like this is a long show. I'll just tell you what stuck out for me was, I'll let you go more in depth, but like Effie, when the unfortunate injury with Allie in the beginning where she hurt her leg, the old school ECW originals, Guido, Super Crazy, Tajiri, they were fun, good to see them back. But man, like now too, with a wild week, like this show is kind of a blur to me too. Oh, Masato Tanaka, I gotta definitely shout that out. Here's a guy I thought, I was amazed could still walk, and he's taking Death Valley Drivers on the apron against Joey Janela. So that was cool. But overall, the show was very long, and I hate to say anything bad, but Brett Lauderdale too, that promo he did in the beginning where he's just looking at his phone like every few minutes, it just wasn't, it was not what I'd hoped for.
Well, it's the toughest thing because GCW has been to the Hammerstein Ballroom twice now.
Yeah.
There were big expectations behind the shows, and they both kind of fell short in different ways. This one, you talked about the injury to Allie Catch. Unfortunately, she broke her leg on the dive out. So that kind of, Effie went to the main event without seeing who could have won. My guess, I think Allie Catch could have won the championship at this show. And I think there would have been a much different feeling about the show if she had. That injury also led to the commission having to leave. Or there was something where the show got delayed in the next match because they needed something from the commission there. So there was that kind of lull to the show too.
Right.
The mystery opponent definitely didn't end up being who either of us.
Oh, Cardona, no.
Cardona.
Yeah.
Also, what did you think of? I still have to catch the Josh Barnett, Tom Peastock.
That just seemed to drag too. It just didn't seem to work in that environment. The crowd was getting restless, and they really seemed to turn on Barnett more than anything too. I think the crowd wanted, Baron Corbin to actually get the victory there. So that was interesting.
Wow. And Alec Price and Cole Radrick won the tag team championship.
That was cool.
So there was some good about this show. There was some bad about this show.
Oh, PCO, we do have to talk about that too. PCO destroys the digital media title, which was just a weird looking segment. And then, of course, we see how that was resolved on the first edition of the Live Impact. But before we get to the Live Impact, it was TNA Genesis.
Yeah, I put these together because things kind of there's a lot to talk about. Like, we could talk about Genesis.
Yeah.
There was some big things coming out of it. Joe Hendry won the TNA championship. Were you surprised that the Hardys beat the Rascals? I don't think either of us saw that coming.
No. But when I saw Faxium out there, I started to realize it made sense that we might be building to a Faxium Hardys match. I'm assuming that will be on the next big, not the Vengeance show, but whatever the WrestleMania weekend show is for NXT. I always forget. That weekend, I imagine we're going to get Faxium versus... What's that?
I think it's Rebellion that they announced.
No, not TNA. I think NXT will have Faxium versus the Hardys.
NXT's gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's what they're leading to with that. So that's my guess. I think we're going to see the Hardys in NXT at some point. And I gotta say, there's a lot of cool ways you could go with this. Just talking about TNA in general, like I think Faxium could end up holding the TNA and the NXT tag titles, but you could also give the Hardys a run with the NXT tag titles, which is a title they never held. And I don't know, there's some interesting stuff you could do. Women's wrestling we always talk about is doing really well with NXT and TNA, but so's tag wrestling right now.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of women's wrestling, you had Tessa Blanchard defeat Jordynne Grace.
Yes.
Everybody thinks Jordynne Grace is on her way out. But what's really notable about this is the negative reaction that Tessa Blanchard had received from the crowd.
Yeah, with everything going on very positive in TNA, it's like the one dark cloud is like Tessa Blanchard. People just, don't really want to see her back, and they're not behind her because of comments she's made. And I get it. I don't know what they're going to do, but I guess they're going to keep marching along and figure people will eventually just forget about it. We'll see how that works. It hasn't seemed to work for Hulk Hogan so far.
Yeah, and, we went from Genesis to the live TNA this week. You had Mance Warner appear and then be given that digital media championship. How did you – I saw this on Post Wrestling. I want to credit them before I say it. But it really kind of tied up that awkward segment from GCW.
Right.
And really brought the story together well in a way that I think wrestling fans can enjoy.
So Stephanie DeLander came out and said she got the title in the divorce. And she wanted to introduce everybody to her new boyfriend when then Mance Warner came out. Now, what's kind of cool about this is they're a real-life couple behind the scenes. So they really incorporated everything because Steph DeLander did have a marriage with PCO and storyline on TNA. And she gets the title. And then I don't know if she handed it to Mance Warner or not, but, that couple was walking around with the digital media title. And I thought it was a fun little way to kind of handle that championship because you could have just got rid of it. But it's like, no, we're going to introduce the storyline with someone who was already here. And, now also introduce Mance Warner, who's been around in MLW, GCW, but really, I don't believe I've ever worked in TNA before. So this is kind of cool.
No, you're right. And I definitely kind of assumed that he was getting it. But right now, things are just very exciting for TNA overall. The way that they have this partnership with NXT, the way that they're bringing in, Mance Warner. You have Mustafa Ali signing with them. What did you say?
I said Cora Jade showed up there, I mean, there's a lot of people. What's up, Chevy? Thanks for tuning in for a bit, brother.
Yeah, morning, Chevy. Yeah, there's a lot of like crossover things. There's a lot of excitement going on. But you talked about Tessa Blanchard, and it made me think of the promo that she had on that live TNA and how well it was rolling off of the comments, that came at the pay-per-view. And then I thought, how well did Tessa Blanchard handle it versus how did Hulk Hogan handle it? Because after these comments come out, she is on that next live show. She faces it head on, and she gives a promo that I'm not going to say redeems her, but she handled herself in front of that crowd. Last night, Saturday night's main event, Hulk Hogan was off the show. They say it was for his son's wedding, but is that a convenient cop-out given what happened on Netflix? Like, if that Netflix reception was different, would Hulk Hogan have been at Saturday night's main event in some way?
I believe so. I think it's more too, you got to just look at it. What each company is probably trying to do. Like with Hulk Hogan, they're trying to use him as an ambassador. Well, that's not going to work. We're going to use the spots that work. With Tessa, she has to be a top tier performer. So she has to move on from this somehow. They have to try. So I agree with you that it was handled better with Tessa, but I also don't know how much trust they had. Whereas like with Hogan, it was like, I think it was in their best interest. Keep him home, get Jesse Ventura out. And I thought that show had a much better feel to it. Talking about last night's show, Saturday night's main event, with Hogan being off and Jesse being in it than it would have we had reversed that. Let's talk about it. Saturday night's main event. Jey Uso versus Gunther. I I was hearing a rumor that Goldberg might be there, and somebody had an idea Goldberg could maybe cost Gunther the World Championship, and Jey Uso would win it, and then Goldberg and Gunther would have the match at Mania. So I got a little too excited because I guess I was hoping that Jey Uso would get his first world title, but that didn't happen. Overall, good show, I thought, though. Nothing. I didn't think there was anything. It was fun to see Jesse Ventura. It was fun to hear it called the Mean Gene, the Oakland position, when they were talking about Jesse Ventura and Joe Tessitore. When they were at the host position, they call that the Oakland position now. I thought that was cool. It was fun to see the Brain Busters, who I've been doing a lot of shorts with lately, in attendance. Love to see Double A and Tully in the crowd. I really still am loving the nostalgia feel of this show. Braun Breaker breaking Sheamus with a spear. That was an awesome thing. I was watching this with a non-fan, and I said, I guess somebody forgot to tell him that it's supposed to be a work. But yeah, overall, a fun show. But I also didn't think this was a show we had to watch either.
No, I really enjoyed it. Like, I thought Jesse Ventura was he came across better to me on this show.
Yeah.
You could tell that there were times where he was, going over, I think, bullet points that they had given him. Because I don't know if you really believe he was at that Battle Royal where Sheamus broke out. But he did well, like, conveying it. I thought he sounded good. I loved the wrestling on the show overall. It was just the talking segments I liked a little less.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was with a non-fan who saw that. And first thing he said, is that Jesse Ventura's voice I hear? Because he picked up when goes, I don't know how bright he can be. He's a Steiner. Like he knew right away. But when Jesse was talking about that Battle Royal, he was there. And my buddy was like, no, he wasn't. And I had to point out this. I believe he was because he hosted a Raw around that time period. But I also believe somebody probably informed him of that stat to let him know, like, hey, we can tie this in here.
Or how about when it got vaguely political where he talked about bringing the Minnesota weather with him, and I don't know why this governor is calling a state of emergency and calling in the National Guard. Like, I was like, I could feel the producers like, oh God, Jesse's going off a little bit. Like,
yeah, for sure. I love the train wreck aspect of that, so that was fine to me. Yeah, and one other thing I guess we should bring up too about last night's show. I have to thought we talk about people doing a good job. Shawn Michaels, for just being involved in a contract signing, I thought he added to that. And when he ended up super kicking Kevin Owens at the end of it, I thought to myself, man, Kevin Owens is already main evented a WrestleMania with Stone Cold Steve Austin. If this son of a bitch can get Shawn Michaels to come back for one more match at a Mania too, I'm like, is there a more blessed performer than Kevin Owens? This guy that I think at one point was told he was too fat to make it into business. And here he is main eventing with Shawn Michaels and Steve Austin at WrestleManias.
Yeah, he's been in awesome matches, done well in WWE. Beautiful. Saturday night's main event. I enjoyed the show. One thing that it helped me realize that I didn't realize this was coming up so quick was the Royal Rumble. This is, the first WWE pay-per-view of the year. Dave, I'm going to throw it out there because I don't know if we are doing a live watch along or not. Are we bringing it back for 2025 or are we saying fuck it?
I was going to talk to you about this because if there's one event I was going to suggest we do it for, the Royal Rumble is kind of almost like the perfect watch-along event because of the flow of the show and there's so many people coming in and out. But rather than put either one of us on the spot, I will say this. People, tune into social media. We'll let you know that way. As me and Joe will have to do some talking. But I would say if there's a watch-along we're going to do this year, this would be it.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a hard maybe. We'll find out behind the scenes, but there's not a lot of matches on this card. We got to make some predictions. So let's just start with the Ladies Royal Rumble. I'm going to give you a minute to pull up the card, but Ladies Royal Rumble.
I got it.
I got Nia Jax winning.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to go with that. That's a nice buzz pick there, but I don't think that's no. I'll go Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte Flair. I thought Nia Jax because she'd be going after Tiffany Stratton's title. You got Charlotte winning, so that's a big return. Which title is she going after?
I'm gonna go Rhea Ripley.
Okay, that's another big WrestleMania match, and that's another great rematch from past WrestleMania.
Yeah, they were feuding for that NXT title at the time. Rhea was still on the way up, and Charlotte wanted to wrestle her. But I think that's why there's more story here, and I think where Rhea gets. I mean, we'll see what happens, but you could have, there's going to be some surprises here. I do think we're going to see Becky Lynch back at the Royal Rumble. I think Jordynne Grace will be in this Royal Rumble. I think Roxanne Perez will be in this Royal Rumble. So, it's kind of one of those things. I think the Women's Rumble is wide. I think the Men's Rumble is pretty wide open too, but I'm going to say Charlotte Flair.
All right, that's a big pick. Let's go from the Ladies Royal Rumble to the Men's Royal Rumble. This one, there's a lot of names entering it. There's a lot of possible stories coming out of it.
Yeah.
I don't think John Cena is going to win, but I'm interested to see who he goes against going into WrestleMania season, because Royal Rumble is the start of those stories going into that big event.
Who are you picking then?
That's what I was just debating.
I'll tell you what, I got it down to me, John Cena is very, very much a possibility. But I think so is Roman Reigns, and I think so is CM Punk. And that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, you really took the words out of my mouth. I mean, I don't see John Cena as a possibility, but it's Roman Reigns or CM Punk. If Roman Reigns wins, we could get another rematch with Cody at WrestleMania. I'm going to say Roman Reigns, because CM Punk, he is going to have a separate feud coming out of this. I'm going to guess John Cena going into WrestleMania.
Yeah. All right. So I'll go John Cena. I'll go John Cena. I'll pick the surprise. John Cena wins, and he's going to wrestle Cody Rhodes for the championship, and that's going to set up their match. I think Roman is either going to wrestle The Rock or CM Punk at Mania. So that's why I think this is a way. Although I do think Cena could very possibly win the Elimination Chamber, and that's another way to get there. But I think we're going to get Cena Cody Rhodes at this point.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of Cena in 2025. I think it's going to be interesting to see the positions that he gets into, kind of how stories go for him.
But I guess if we're both saying Roman against Cody, Cena against Cody, that kind of tells you who we think is going to win the next match.
Yeah, that's the only other match I know on this show, the ladder match, Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens. I think this is going to be a great match. Kevin Owens has... he's been incredible during this buildup.
Yes.
But Cody is not dropping that title.
No.
You called it for Wrestler of the Year. He's going to WrestleMania. He is completing that story once again, doing a lap around the WWE in Indianapolis to start it off.
Yeah. No, I think Cody's definitely winning. I think we will see something with Kevin that will lead into his WrestleMania program, whether it's Sami Zayn or Shawn Michaels, whatever this man does, but or Randy Orton. But I do think we'll see that. And by the way, that's another guy who could come back in time and win this Rumble, or could have a match with Cody Rhodes. Randy Orton. Let's not rule that out. But there is one more match that was announced, and it really tells you what a different time it is in WWE that right now that this match is going to get a showcase. But it is 2 out of 3 falls, WWE tag titles, DIY versus the Motor City Machine Guns.
Ooh. Damn, that is going to be...
That's a good one.
That's a possible show stealer right there.
Yeah, maybe you open up with it actually, but I'll go with the Guns.
I really can't disagree with you there. DIY is great, but 2 out of 3 falls, Indianapolis. This is a big chance for the Guns.
I think there's some really cool stuff they could do with WrestleMania this year. Now that you have TNA as part of the thing, like, could you imagine like a ladder match with the Hardys, Faxium, DIY, and the Motor City Machine Guns?
Oh wow!
Right?
I didn't even think of it going there. Like, I'd be scared for the Hardys, but I feel like they got one last big one in them.
Yeah.
And why not do it? Now to put over such great young teams.
Absolutely.
Speaking of young talent, and earlier you brought up the shit show at GCW, Ricky Starks this week, there was news that he had asked for his release, was denied his release. And this was interesting because not used a lot on AEW. When he was on NWA, he was somebody that stood out to us as a great talent. What do you feel about Tony Khan denying the release? Does it make sense to you? Or is it needless jerking around with somebody who's already been underutilized?
I know why you're doing it. I mean, it really depends on what you want to look at from a business standpoint. Like, if your business standpoint is, this guy's going to possibly make a splash somewhere, and I'm trying to hold that back by just not giving him TV time and cool him off, then I guess it's fine. But I think if you have someone who doesn't want to work with you and they don't want to be there, and you can't mend that relationship, then it's pointless to keep paying that guy or girl money. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I will take this position against AEW, WWE, whoever. If you have someone who doesn't want to do business with you and you can't fix it, then you need to figure out how to move on. Especially if you're not going to use them. If you're going to force their hand somehow and use them and put them on TV and you're going to get lawyers and you're going to do whatever, okay. But if you're just going to sit them at home and pay them, it's a waste of your time.
100%. It's just another thing that I think it's like another small mark against Tony Khan. And this is coming from somebody who likes AEW.
Yeah.
But I've seen enough evidence where it's just these little things add up. And you're like, oh, that's not a good look.
It's the same thing Vince McMahon did. He used to do this too. People would criticize him, and it's the same thing. I didn't like it then either. But we knew Vince was petty as fuck. But I mean, that's just apparently Tony Khan has that in him too. I would think. Otherwise, I don't know what the logical reason is, unless like I said, if you think it's that important to try to cool these guys off. But to me, you got such a stacked roster. It's a waste of money. Let him go.
And not a shot against Ricky Starks, but if he was like CM Punk level, I get it, because CM Punk was one of those people that was going to be leaving your company that was going to make a huge splash. Ricky Starks is going to be good in WWE, NXT, wherever he lands. I don't know if he's going to be like, company wrecking where Tony Khan really feels the need to do this.
And the thing is, WWE, like AEW, already has such a bloated roster. Who knows what's going to happen? Like, there's so much talent, it's going to be really hard to break through. I think Ricky would, because he's very talented and he's got, he's friends with Cody, so I think he'll be given a fair shot. But it just doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me.
100%. And before we go on to our big comparison segment of the week, I want to go back to talking about TNA Genesis for a minute, because of everything that happened and everything that happened the next night. I think we kind of breezed over Joe Hendry finally becoming TNA Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah.
This is a big thing. Do you think TNA is going to see success off of this, or is this the natural conclusion to the hype that's been building behind him? Basically, like, do you think this is going to go any further, or is this going to be kind of the height of Joe Hendry?
I think that the timing of TNA's relationship with WWE and NXT and Joe Hendry winning the championship is not just coincidental. I think there's a plan in place, and I feel like there's going to be big things for TNA this year, and Joe Hendry is going to be at the center of all that. I am not going to be surprised if we see a major WWE superstar show up at a TNA pay-per-view this year, not just NXT. I'm thinking you could even see Joe Hendry either wrestle or team up with a John Cena this year. I think they have some bigger arenas. I think it's the WWE's mindset right now. I think they're trying to turn TNA into a number 2 alternative as opposed to AEW. And I think if they're not going to, I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think they're going to at least try to make TNA profitable, buzzworthy, and put them in that same breath. And I think to do all that, you got to have Joe Hendry at the top, because he's probably the biggest buzzworthy guy right now in that company. Will the momentum continue? I think so. For a little while, Joe Hendry is a guy who really seems to work his ass off and really knows how to connect with the people.
I gotta agree with you there. I think it's going to having the title on Joe Hendry is going to make him less of a meme in the US, and people are gonna start to get behind him more as a champion. I'm hoping. We're gonna play this back in 2026 and we're gonna see that it lasted a month and I was wrong
Yeah.
again. But you know, he's been doing great outside of the US, just recently gaining popularity. I think he's going to become one of the best foreign wrestlers in the US because of this. And if you want to speak of
Foreign wrestlers.
US wrestlers that were big foreign, US wrestlers that were big here, you put up this comparison of
Yeah.
the Miracle Violence Connection or the Road Warriors. And I thought this was a great comparison because I couldn't think of two harder hitting teams from the time and two teams that were just as legitimate outside of the ring as they were
Right.
inside of the ring.
Well, so to me, I love both these teams. And I'll say I take, if you're asking me who would win a legit fight between both these guys, all these guys are legitimate, but I would take Gordy and Williams in a back alley fight. I just feel like Williams was an animal, in his prime, and Gordy was tough as hell too. But I think it'd be fun to watch. Now, if you're talking about in the ring and the presentation, Williams and Gordy, super successful. They were great, but Animal and Hawk, the Legion of Doom, are arguably the biggest attraction tag team ever. When you talk about real tag teams, not talking about Brothers of Destruction, Mega Powers, those short-lived super teams. When you're talking about teams, just tag teams that could headline and main event your companies, the Legion of Doom Road Warriors were really the first team to really do that, I think.
Yeah, there's legitimate men on both sides of this, but Legion of Doom, they did it on a bigger stage. They were able to do it multiple times.
Yes.
And I think that's what gives them the edge because both teams decorated, both teams tough, well-respected teams coming out of the 80s. But Legion of Doom made it to the WWF. They were able to translate to that bigger audience, where Williams and Gordy might not have necessarily made that move. We'll never know. But I mean, as you can see, these men separately weren't presented well in the WWE. Would Vince McMahon have figured out how to present them as a team?
Oh, I don't know. Vince was not a big tag team guy, so it depends. In the Attitude Era, maybe if Gordy and Williams were in their prime around then because they were trying to give different people chances. But it would have been hard. It would have been hard. Road Warriors were able to break through just because they had so much momentum in the States. But it would have been interesting with Vince, and Vince just not having a great record of consistently booking tag teams to the best of their abilities.
100%. We had a lot of wrestling to talk this week. Was there anything you wanted to bring up from this week that didn't fall within the?
Well, I think we're starting to
break up during all of that.
Yeah, we're starting to have little issues here. So I'll just leave with this. Out of everything we talked about it this week, NXT is continuing to be my favorite show. I think their ratings have been up again consistently. I saw somewhere. And Shawn Michaels is just doing a really good job. And that promotion to me, that brand, I should say, actually feels different than WWE or anything else right now. And I really just like the overall feel to it. I think they're doing a good job of getting people over like Obafemi, Julia, and seeing a mixture of TNA people plus mainstream, main roster WWE people is pretty cool.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there. Seeing NXT get big, seeing, them mix with TNA. TNA is looking so much better because of it. And TNA is looking good. But Dave, there's somebody else out there looking good. That's Game Up. If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store. Author Ray Lopez presents Lockup, professional wrestling in our world. Lockup dives headfirst into the colorful world of professional wrestling. Explore the iconic characters, careers, matches, history, and families, and delve into the bizarre and fascinating entwining of professional wrestling and film, television, football, politics, gender, and race. Pre-orders are available now on Amazon.com or at MascotBooks.com. This is the perfect gift for the wrestling fan in your life. Pick up a copy today on Amazon.com or at MascotBooks.com.
Hey fans, it's the man they call Dave with producer Joe, and you probably know us as the commentary team for New Heights Pro Wrestling, but when we're not doing that, we got a podcast.
That is the Working Fans Podcast, where we talk pro wrestling, comedy, MMA, and so much more.
And tell them about that signature segment.
Oh, you talk about the 531?
You know I am.
That is a homegrown creation that has been our namesake. And if you want to know our namesake, we got Chevy, AJ Strange Brew, as well as the two of us.
And why don't you go to our channel, like, subscribe, show us some love.
Rate, review, all of it.
Hey, all you goddamn wrestling fans out there, listen, Old Black Bart has got a book. It's called Wrestle Black Bart. It's got some dadgum good stories in there about some dadgum good wrestlers.
Read stories of Dusty Rhodes, the Von Erichs, Scott Casey, Sergeant Slaughter, Roddy Piper, Mr. Fuji, Ron Bass, Bruiser Brody, Mike Davis, the Grappler, and many others.
And I guarantee you one thing, that it'll be the best dadgum read you've had in a long, long time.
Get your book today at Russellville.com or on Amazon. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories, including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.